Hello, welcome back to Chat About It, Don't Shout About It with me, Rachel, the Queen of the Woke, as crowned by one of my haters. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to my channel. Thank you to everyone who has joined me already. I couldn't do this without you. Today is Woke Wednesday, and J.K. Rowling has been in the news. I'm not going to be focusing too much on J.K. Rowling in this video. I'm actually going to be focusing on the new Women and Equalities Minister for the Labour government, Anneliese Dodds. Now, my stance on J.K. Rowling, I'm not going to discuss like normal because I feel like people need to actually listen to the facts and make that decision for themselves. Recently, J.K. Rowling has released an article for The Times. It is behind a paywall, so I've linked it below because I'm not going to be paying to access it. But the title was, Labour has dismissed women like me. I'll struggle to vote for it. So that's pretty much going to tell you what you need to know from the get-go, what to expect from that article. And then on the right-hand side, this is Anneliese Dodds, MP. And there was an interview that she did a little while ago, and we'll get to that much later on in the video. Rowling attacks Starmer over new woman's minister. Author hits out at appointment of Anneliese Dodds. Sir Keir Starmer sparked a row on Monday by appointing a woman's minister who said that there are many definitions of a woman. J.K. Rowling, Martina Navratilova, and other feminist campaigners attacked the Prime Minister's decision to appoint Anneliese Dodds as the Women and Equalities Minister. It comes after months of criticism of Sir Keir's stance on gender issues. He had previously said it was wrong for one of his MPs to say only a woman has a cervix, and last year said 99.9% of women do not have a penis. He has since changed his stance and said biological men should not be allowed to use women's lavatories. You see, I'm not a big fan of Keir Starmer. And one of the reasons why I'm not a big fan is because he keeps flip-flopping on things like this. And this really shouldn't be up for debate. But for some reason, it is. I've had people say to me that gender is a spectrum. It's the blurring of the lines, though, that's happening here with biology. After Miss Dodd's appointment, Rowling described her previous comments as nonsensical. The Harry Potter author, who gave Labour 1 million in 2008, has accused it of having abandoned her and others campaigning for women's rights. Writing in The Times, she said she would struggle to vote for Sir Keir, saying that she had a poor opinion of his character and accusing the party of a dismissive and often offensive approach to women's concerns under his leadership. And this is the tweet where she refers to this particular interview that Anneliese Dodds did as nonsensical. And if you happen to be wondering how I have the transcript of that Women's Hour to hand, it was sent to me by Dodds' office after I publicly criticised her prevarication on the programme. They seemed to think I'd find her comments less nonsensical if I saw them in print. And I have linked both of those tweets below so you can have a look at them for yourself. Sir Keir announced that Bridget Phillipson, the Education Secretary, would also have the title Minister for Women and Equalities because the title legally has to be held by someone of Secretary of State rank. Miss Phillipson has also been criticised for her approach to women's issues after she refused 8 times to say whether a biological male should be able to use a woman's lavatory during an interview with LBC Radio in the run-up to the election. Delighted to be working with Bridget Phillipson again on our equality agenda. As Minister for Women and Equalities, I will deliver our plans to support women and girls, advance race equality, break new ground for LGBT plus rights, and stand up for disabled people. Change starts now. Have you ever gotten to that point where you think that some of these jobs actually need to be broken down? I sometimes think that lumping all of these together ends up blurring the lines and perhaps makes it difficult for an MP to focus. Maybe we should actually start considering having a women's rights minister, an equalities minister, someone to specifically focus on trans. You get what I mean by that, right? I just feel like that having it all lumped in together, the priorities are going to be mixed and all over the place. So I've let you wait long enough. This interview was taken from 2022 and it's conducted by Emma Barnett and she was talking to Anneliese Dodds.
Labour's definition of a woman? Well, I ought to say that there are different definitions legally around what a woman actually is. I mean, you look at the definition within the Equality Act, and I think it just says someone who is adult and female, I think, but then doesn't say how you define either of those things. I mean, obviously, that's then you've got the biological definition, legal definition.
No, with respect, I didn't ask for that. What's the Labour definition?
Oh, I think with respect, Emma, I think it does depend what the context is, surely. I mean, surely that is important here. You know, there are people who have decided that they have to make that transition. You know, I've spoken with many of them. It's been a very difficult process for many of those people, and you know, understandably, because they live as a woman, you know, they want to be defined as a woman. That's what the Gender Recognition Act, again, a Labour
context
is brought into place.
Context is all, but trans women are women from your perspective. Is that right?
But then when you come to the Equality Act, and you know, I'm not going.
No, you're just Shadow Women and Equalities Minister. I've been asked this by about 8 messages here, and I'm just trying to clarify, because the government's been very clear it's not going ahead in England with the process of self-identification. So that's why I'm asking you.
Well, I don't think the government has been very clear in many aspects of this.
That's wrong. The government were extremely clear.
Because when it comes to the operation of the single-sex exemptions, you know, that is spelled out within the Equality Act quite rightly. I mean, when it comes to sport, for example,
you've said that, but
you can have single-sex. Sorry, if I can just finish speaking up.
Right, so she's talking about sport, right? So what about private spaces other than sport?
That single-sex exemption, for example, if that's necessary for the safety of participants in sport, or if it's necessary in order to ensure fair competitions, that is spelled out within the Act. You know?
Yes, because there is a biological difference.
I think it's really important that we're actually looking at what the legislation.
I've read it out. I've read it out several times, and I'm sure I will continue to do so.
So she can't define what a woman is, which is an adult human female. She says it depends on the context. She talks about the Equality Act, and she says the Equality Act is unclear. And then when she tries to actually give it more sort of like context or whatever, she goes on about women's sports and men being in women's sports. Keeping trans women out of women's sports because of the biological difference is one thing, but what about the spaces, our own spaces? There was a follow-up from that.
We've got another one here from Joan who says, for God's sake, Anneliese Dodds, answer the question, what is a woman? Enough of this, it depends nonsense. If your answer is an adult human female, you shouldn't be Shadow Secretary for Women. Woeful performance on International Women's Day. Labour is losing women.
So I will link the Equality Act below for you so that you can go and have a look for yourself. But Anneliese Dodds has been appointed to the Women and Equalities Minister position and yet can't define what a woman is. Now, whilst I was actually searching through a load of things and the Equality Act and all sorts of things, I actually came across some things about the Gender Recognition Act and how people reacted to it. Gender Recognition Act, what people said, women-only services and men-only services. People had strong views about whether women-only or men-only services would be affected. Some people thought that women-only services would not be safe. And this is still going on right now. Women-only and men-only spaces. Some people thought that men could say they were trans just so that they can get into women's spaces. Others said there was no real change. Trans people also have a right to a safe space. Now, I do agree with that, but not at the detriment and the removal of other people's spaces, men and women. I believe that perhaps, if anything that should come from this, it's that maybe they should actually have their own spaces. But I suppose the risk that they would argue with that is then that would out that person as trans. The government should think about how changes to this law could affect women and children. So with the appointment of Anneliese Dodds, people are worried. Of course they are, because she has no clear definition of what a woman is, despite being a woman herself. And people are worried that she is going to create issues with Bridget that create issues for women? How much do you take away from one biological sex for the sake of accommodating other people? This is why I actually think we need separate ministers for these jobs. And I think access to their own spaces, if it is able to be afforded, should be done, not at the detriment to other people. That's what I think. That's just my opinion. You can disagree with that if you would like to. But with Keir Starmer, who flip-flops everywhere, and someone who doesn't know the definition of a woman, which is an adult human female, who knows what's going to happen? I'm not saying that Kemi Badenoch was any better, just so you know. But at least she knew the definition of a woman. Now, you may think that Anneliese Dodds is a great appointment. If you do think that, let me know why in the comments below. I'll be interested to hear from you. Let me know what you think. Chat about it, don't shout about it. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel. I'll be back tomorrow for Keep It Positive. Thanks very much for watching. Bye-bye.